Welcome to episode 1 of the Parent Coaching Show. You are about to listen in on your first real world parent coaching session. The coach in this session is Alan Miller, who's one of our trainers here at the Giant Institute for Parenting. And she is talking to a woman I just adore, Noah, who lives in Spain and is a graduate of JAI. As you're about to hear in my conversation with Alan and Alan's conversation with Noah, just because we are parent coaches does not mean that we're perfect parents. We still struggle. We still have challenges. You're going to hear Noah talk about her frustration with her 2-year-old and wanting to give her a wholly different experience than Noah had as a child, and how this tension she's feeling between needing to get out the door and to school and wanting to be a safe, loving place for her daughter provide an opening into a deeper understanding of how Noah's childhood impacted her parenting. And then Alan and I are going to get into it. We're going to share some stories of our own about the awarenesses that we have as parents and how children, when we let them, can be the greatest teachers that we have. Enjoy this episode. Let us know what comes up for you in the episode notes or the comments. And make sure to subscribe for all future episodes of the brand new, we're so excited to finally be here, Parent Coaching Show.
I have found myself, I have a 2-year-old, and I have found myself struggling with how to still do the things that I know as the parent I have to do for her, and hearing her say no or screaming or kicking, right? Like the car seat example. Suddenly, it's developmentally appropriate. Everything is a no. And as much as you logically know that that's what happens, when you are trying to do something and you're met constantly with that resistance, it's not until that happens that you feel the energy and like, how do I proceed? Because I don't want to be a power over parent, and I want to meet her where she's at. And I also have this responsibility that we need to go to school or somewhere, and I need to put her in the car seat, or I know time. She doesn't. So I know when it's time for, bah, I'm going to sleep, even if she resists and says, no, no, no. And here I'm at, strongly not wanting to be my parent and wanting to cuddle her and wanting to give her everything she wants. And on the other hand, I have to be a parent. I have to parent her.
Yeah.
And that comes setting those limits and those boundaries, and having to do things for your child that they don't like. And it's sucky because I just want to love and adore her. And then,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Noah, I love hearing you share this because, these toddlers, first of all, they're my favorite humans on earth. They're so little, and yet they're so huge with what's happening inside their own experience and the rate of everything that's happening inside their experience. Like they're developing at lightning speed, even though on the outside, they tend to be like, going at their own pace, which is perfect. And what I also hear you saying is that you know that you don't want to be power over because of your own experiences and what you've learned through that and where you are in your adult life. You don't want to recreate that with your own daughter. And at the same time, it's really hard to be the strong parent, the leader in those really tough times when this matters. Like, I'm not just going to give up here, but how do I do this without creating the disconnection that I experienced in my own childhood? Does that kind of capture where you are?
And two things have come up while you were saying that. I'm so scared of being power over that I fear I'm using more power under tact.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when you said a leader, yes, being that confident leader.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like right now you have no solid ground. I don't want to do this because that didn't work for me. But then if I don't do that and I'm not doing anything, that's not helping my child. That's not raising her the way I want to. So then what? Okay. Let's find the then what. So a few things are coming to mind just in terms of what we know and understand about toddlers. You mentioned a few times when she says no, she's kicking and pushing. Like her words are saying no, her body is saying no. And for me, that is so exciting. She is opening the door toward her autonomy and her voice and her essence. And man, this zone, like you said, it's sucky. You used to have this sweet little like baby, an infant that just went along with everything. Where did they go? Now you've got this toddler, no, in your face, kicking you. So what then? So a few things come to mind. One question I want to check in on first is there, based on your experience, especially in your own childhood and what you don't want, and you mentioned, I'm afraid of this, is that fear telling you if my child struggles now, she's going to struggle forever?
So I think something has come up and I'm going to roll with that.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to my mom for so many years at a time. Sometimes we would go 1, 2 years without talking.
Mm.
I had this whole distance because of how I felt around her, who I
Mhm.
was around her. And I think I'm really scared of that. I
Yeah.
think I'm really scared of her wanting to distance herself from me
Yeah.
and not wanting to have a relationship with me. So when I imagine her as an adult, I imagine her freedom because of how I've peacefully parented her. And I imagine her being the go-to for her.
Yes. Mhm.
And that's my constant fear. Oh, if I do this, that's it. She's not going to ever want to trust me or confide in me.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are coming up.
Yeah. So it's almost like the part of you that is fully aware of the distance from your mom is really afraid that these interactions that are these reactions that you see in your daughter because of what you're doing are going to create that same distance. Yeah. And that makes so much sense because that has been your experience, that little ruptures have been what created the bigger distance. Does that kind of match?
Yes. And one more thing just came up, which I think is very powerful. A while back, you coached me, and from that session, I got, I understood that one of my biggest limiting beliefs is that I'm not lovable.
Mm,
And that's what's coming up right now.
no, yeah,
I'm not going to be loved by my daughter.
yeah. She's physically pushing and kicking you away. She's verbally telling you, no, no, no. And that is going straight to that tender place of, I'm unlovable. And
Or
that,
when she hits me or scratches me, which I know, again, she's not a monster. I know that she's learning how to use her energy. And still, I feel that whole thing inside me of like, oh, she just hates me. I know that she doesn't, but it's the feeling that I have inside my
yeah.
body, like a cellular level.
Yeah, you're like, your level of awareness is that like you're operating in two spaces. You have your conscious awareness that's saying, okay, she's two. Okay, this is developmentally appropriate. Okay, this makes sense. And further below the surface that you are now coming closer in contact with is, oh yeah, she hates me. And so you're working with these two realities because one is not more real than the other, but now they're really close together in these daily, regular interactions. Yeah, I see you holding your heart. What's
Yeah.
happening for you right now?
I'm feeling like a burning inside of me.
Yeah, say more.
Said about I'm living two realities. It's like so, it is so true. It is helpful to understand and remember that two things can be true.
Mm,
And it's also bringing up so much. Mm, I can't pinpoint right now if it's because I wanted to say fear, but then I'm like, I don't know if it's fear. Right now, I'm feeling like this burning of
mm.
when I shared that sometimes I feel like she hates me. It brought up this burning.
I wonder, is that kind of like a longing for that love?
Yeah. So the way it's coming up for me is more like a rejection of the hatred.
Okay, great. Like, is it like rejecting the hatred because your conscious mind knows that that's not where your daughter's coming from? Okay. So you're having this massive internal dialogue inside yourself, which is so exciting. And it's exhausting.
That's how I feel. I feel like I'm exhausted. Everything that you've just shared back to me, I'm like, oh my God, how am I still going?
Yeah, and you're still going. It makes sense that it's exhausting because your brain would prefer to just keep that belief, I'm unlovable, she hates me, down below. It's just easier that way to just keep that down below, just keep going down that road. Eh, yeah, it worked before. We can just keep going. And your conscious brain is like, oh, hell no. That is not where I want to be. I've got this sweet 2-year-old here, and I am not continuing the road of I'm unlovable while I raise my daughter. Hmm. So
Oh, that sounds amazing.
your system's doing some major heavy lifting here. So I wonder if we can find a way to lighten this effort of these dual conversations. And I heard you say that burning sensation was like rejecting the idea of she hates me. I wonder if we can work with that because rejection is hard, resistance is hard, pushing is hard. If we can find a different way to see that voice of she hates me and maybe pull it closer by asking, what do you need?
I think I need reassurance.
Okay,
I don't remember.
that's okay.
Um, so this is what's coming up right now. I, in an ideal world, as she's pushing me, as she's kicking, as she's whatever she's lovingly 2-year-old doing, I'm hearing, and I love you, and I love you, and I love you.
Yes. Yes, Noah, that is so powerful. That is your conscious brain that's choosing the reality that's not coming from that fear of she hates me. You are creating the the reality that is true for you, that you know is true for your daughter, that her actions are sending this message, "No, get away, and I love you." It doesn't her actions don't mean she doesn't love you. Yeah,
So I'm rounding this up to like everything in life, how personal we take everything because of the lens that we look at things from.
absolutely.
I guess that I have a new question coming up, which is in the moments of wonder, whether I'm doing the right thing or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I have something there.
Like my
Yeah.
instinct and that confidence of like, I'm doing this because I'm a parent and parents need to parent. Whatever that looks like. And also understanding that I'm not a robot
Right.
and that I can't control absolutely every word and action that comes from me. I try really hard and I try to practice because I have the tools and I'm not a robot.
Yeah.
So, maybe she will need to go to therapy to talk about me one day and it just won't be as extensive as my work with my mom. But yeah, I think I need to work a little bit on that part of confidence. And I don't know if the word is being okay with, but for lack of a better, of another one, being okay with if I've messed up, I haven't done it with the intention
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. So what you're sharing here is bringing something very clear to my mind, especially that you mentioned not feeling confident and just like hoping that she can understand that when you mess up, you weren't trying to, that you're trying to do the best you can, and you know that there are times you're going to mess up. And so what I'm wondering is for that piece of confidence, what I think our brains tend to look for is all the things that are messed up. Like we are so good at seeing the screw ups, the mess ups, the mistakes, the bad stuff. And to build that confidence, we can find, we can help your brain find the success and find the evidence that we're going in the right direction. So, where I'm going with this is back to at the beginning, what you shared of your experience in that big distance with you and your mom. And this speaks right to like the heart of what we're aiming for in parenting is connection. And so, in those micro moments, well, they don't feel micro, but in those parenting moments, like the car seat or the bath or the bedtime, and there's that resistance, and you do your parenting because you know that this is what you need to do. And you're wondering, oh my gosh, did I just mess her up for life? Ask yourself, are we finding connection again? And I'd love to hear from your experience.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's just empowered my whole body. Oh, that's beautiful. Sorry, finish what you were saying.
That's about it.
I,
I was just going to invite you to just reflect in any recent scenarios in those struggles an hour later, half a day later, the next day. Are we finding connection again? And what
every
does it look like?
every night she comes to our bed to come sleep with us.
Yeah,
And can I reflect on what you just shared?
sure.
I recently coached someone on the anger module, and I like to rewatch a lot of the videos myself because you never stop learning. You listen to something new all the time. And the last thing that I re-heard was from Irene Lyon on sometimes when you need to set boundaries around safety and you have to have a hard no, how you follow up that, right? So it's the no, because it's a safety thing and you need to bring in that impact, the why, and then follow up with connection.
Yeah.
That, and I'd like to share what I've been doing.
Yes, please.
Because when I'm thinking about power over, power with, so whenever she says no, or she kicks that she doesn't want to be in the car seat, or whichever the situation is, I'm I try to meet her where she's at. Maybe I give her a minute, but if it's like we have to go or it's time to, I will find myself kind of picking her up with so much love as I talk to her and I reassure her, I hear you. I hear how much you don't want this. I wish I could give you exactly what you want. And right now, mommy has to do this for you. While she's kicking, I try to really anchor myself and talk to her from the place of empathy and love. And this is, as your parent, the decision that I have to make right now, which is the hardest decision. And that is how I feel that I'm still giving her that connection.
Yeah.
So I think that that's also what I've been struggling with, right? Because I'm like having to hold her and do this thing that she doesn't want while I'm talking and lovingly, physically connecting with her. So I think that's been messing up with my head. Is this right
Yeah.
thing?
Well, of course, it's messing you up with your head because your head has not had that experience.
Yeah.
Your head is saying, "What is this? Being strong and loving at the same time? What?" Like, it's like you just put on a shirt that totally doesn't fit, except that it does.
Okay. So that's been like what's been super confusing my brain and
Yeah.
make me wonder, am I doing the right thing?
You are acting now outside the patterns that you've grown up with. And so your system is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. This is so different. How can this be right?" And again, it's that internal dialogue. I was gonna say battle, but let's call it a dialogue. We're not at war with ourselves. You have this internal dialogue of a part of you that's like, "What? I don't get this. This doesn't make sense. This is not familiar." And your conscious side that has learned, that is growing, that is integrating, and like in the space of, yes, this is the way. And so I feel so much excitement for you and your parenting and your daughter because she's only 2, because you're already in the space of seeing the old very clearly and very much committed to the new, and you'll just continue this integration where the new becomes more familiar and the old just goes down to a whisper.
Yeah. So that what I'm seeing is until now in life, in society, in myself, every time I've seen a toddler kicking, crying, say in the grocery store or wherever, the picture that I have in my head is of the parent grabbing them and getting angry and showing so much power over da 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 da. That me grabbing them lovingly and hearing them and having to be, I know this is so hard and I'm sorry and I love you while I'm grabbing them. That is so unfamiliar.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, is this still working? Is she still going to love me? Even if I say these things to her, even if I hold her lovingly, I'm still taking her away from what she wants.
Yeah. Completely valid question.
So I guess my last bit would be, when will I know if this has worked?
Ah, isn't that the question that we're all asking? How do we know it worked? Check back when she's 25. That goes back to, are we finding reconnection? Like, that's a moment that in her system, sure, it does feel like disconnection because she is showing resistance. She is, you know, not on board with your plan, and she doesn't have to be. And the biggest difference is that reconnection, because I'm just going to make a general guess that in the times when you were a child and you showed that resistance and there was disconnection, you were just left alone to figure it all out.
Just open a whole new different layer. I would not be spoken to for days, weeks, years with my mother. We would get angry, we would have conflict. The solution was to stop talking. And it was so big.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess that's my biggest fear, her not talking to me.
Yeah. And here you are consistently, regularly, reliably maintaining and reopening to connection that she is walking right into every night to snuggle before she goes to sleep.
Ellen, I loved this conversation that you had in this coaching container that we just listened to. And it struck me as I was listening to it. I mean, obviously, I get this question about 2-year-olds pretty much everywhere I go. It's so funny. I was just at a conference this week and I met this wonderful man. And he's like, "Oh, my 2-year-old." And I love this conversation because I think it's so applicable to any age where we think we have a trigger around our child's behavior, but then we work with an amazing coach like you and realize there's something deeper going on. And so the question that I have for you is from your vantage point and all the parents that you speak to on a weekly basis. Like, is there ever a time when a trigger is just a trigger, or is there always like fodder underneath?
Ooh, yeah, really good question because it's my first inclination is to say it's never the thing. Like, if it's the 2-year-old not getting into the car seat, if it's the 17-year-old flying out of the driveway in the car, like, it's never the thing. And sometimes, like, a trigger could be coming from, like, a space of overwhelm and overstressed and just depleted. And even if that is the trigger, there is an underlying piece of what have you learned in your life about how to operate when you're in that space? And so there are, I will venture to say always, like, it's hard to say always, but in my experience with all these conversations, there's another layer. And so we can start at the top and just look at what's happening here. What can we do, in quotes, about that? Another layer is, where are you actually? And the deepest layer is, what have you learned about how you can be in this situation or any situation? And so for some people, being able to get to that deepest layer takes a while. And when we can get there, it's like the domino effect. If we can get to that deepest layer, all of a sudden, so many other things start to make sense and fall into place. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, our work here at Jai, we're talking a lot about how children's behavior is a reflection of a need and whether that need has been met or not met. It's kind of like this operating principle in our work. I'll put that simply for you guys watching or listening. Children's behavior is their attempt, effective or ineffective, to solve a problem. And that problem may be that they want to experience less pain or discomfort, or that they want to have something or experience something. And behavior is their mode of communication because they're children and they don't have the words yet. Heck, I'm a grown up. I don't often have the words yet to clearly say what I need. But the reason that I bring this up, Alan, is what I'm hearing in your share is that their behavior and the way that we respond to it also is an indication to ourselves that we have or had a need that isn't being met. And I think parents really struggle with this, right? Because it's like, whose needs matter more and what happens when they're in conflict with each other?
Yeah, it's really tricky and interesting when you kind of step out and can almost take like a third person view of the whole scene and rather just seeing yourself, what's happening with the child there, but step further back and see how the two are interacting, parent and child. And like in this particular conversation, I love hearing what you say, like, our behaviors are communication. We're striving for something. Sometimes we're striving to get something we want. Sometimes we're striving to get away from something that's painful. And so, like, Noah's daughter's behavior is striving to get her independence and her voice. And Noah's very understandable response is to get away from that pain of perceiving rejection. And so when you're able to put behavior into that context of what am I needing? What is she needing? What am I needing? It starts to become more clear. And for some people, keeping it in the moment, like, what do I need right now? Okay, I can work with that is great. And like in Noah's case, going even deeper, this is a this has been an unmet need for a really long time. And now it's coming to the surface in these different interactions. And so yeah, it starts to make so much more sense when we can zoom out and get a bigger and bigger picture.
Yeah. We talk a lot about being in power with children. And I want to speak to that distinction for just a minute here. So when the parent's needs supersede the needs of the child, that's power over, right? Like that's what a lot of us experienced often as children, do as I say because I said so. I'm the parent. You don't get to have an opinion. You're a child. And, the pendulum, I think, has swung because so many of us were parented in power over households. There's now kind of an epidemic of power under, which is that the child's needs are given superiority over the parents. And we just kind of let them have, anything to keep them smiling and happy. And so, can you tell me what power I would like to know what power with means to you.
Yeah, it is tricky because, like you said, I know, like, if this is what I experienced and that was hard and painful, I'm going to kind of come over here and do this instead. And so going from one side to the opposite is still missing where we want to be. And so finding that where we want to be is it's not always going to feel good. And I think that's the hardest part to accept that for your child to be in momentary, temporary discomfort while you, as the parent, take a moment to fill your own needs, it may seem like you're failing, but that's only if you're perceiving your child's discomfort as failure because you think that parenting is about keeping your child happy. So, like, let's just toss that idea out. We're not raising kids to keep them happy. And actually, they can sense more of that happiness when they learn discomfort is going to happen. It is okay, and we'll get through it somehow. That's actually a better recipe for happiness in the long run.
Right?
And so flipping it, so, yeah, sometimes our child might be uncomfortable waiting for us or not getting the immediate response that they're really hoping for because their little brain doesn't know how to be patient yet. Um, and flipping it, like, yes, as parents, we still are going to have many times when we get more creative about when and how we are going to meet our own needs because, yes, our children depend on us. They depend entirely on us, which does sound kind of scary, but it's not the end of the world. And so it's a dance
Mm,
around and with each other. What can I, as the parent, tolerate here and now while I meet my children's needs? And when do I also get to meet my needs, even if that means my child's going to be a little uncomfortable for a little bit, because I'm going to come back to them more resourced and more available to give them what they need, which usually is some form of connection. So rather than plowing ahead and being a martyr and suffering interminably, that's not how you offer connection to your child. So it's a dance and it's not always pretty. And that's parenting.
Isn't that so? Yeah, it's like the way that I see that is, there's just an ebb and flow to it, right? That sometimes we're going to give our children intentionally a little bit more leeway and a little bit more of a long leash, if you will. It's not a great analogy. And other times we get to be more assertive and directive and allow whatever understandable feelings emerge from that moment of using power, using control, using our bigger bodies to make something happen, that's okay. So many people think that peaceful parenting is permissive parenting and, have a really hard time getting brains around this idea that children don't require punishments, threats, applied consequences, meaning things like timeout or not being able to watch TV or go to the party or have their favorite toy, um, with permissive parenting, and that they can just do whatever they want. And I just, in my own parenting journey, I was just reflecting on this morning. My kids are older now, they're 17 and 18. But I think because we worked on this capacity to be with each other when we were angry or sad or disappointed or frustrated, and to name it, when my children's behavior, as they got older, caused me to say, I'm feeling angry, that they say that my eye twitches when I do it, which is apparently very scary, I guess. So I don't know, maybe this learning not to yell thing doesn't actually make that much of a difference. But it feels to me, with the benefit of perspective, that my authentically expressed anger, held with compassion, was enough. Do you experience that too?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I just had a moment this week myself with my 10-year-old daughter and reflecting on it with a group of coaches in training. I realized I'm now in the place where, I mean, for sure, I still get squirrely and squirmy with the stuff that I see my daughter doing. She was threatening to run away. And after punching her brother, after throwing her stuff all over the mudroom, then she threatened to run away. And, um, and it doesn't feel good. Like, you don't wanna see your children interacting that way. You don't wanna see those behaviors. You don't wanna hear them threaten to run away. And and there's the and I maintained that curiosity. What is actually happening here? It's not because he got in the garage first. Like, that's not what's really going on. What? And so, just as with Noah's conversation, it's not about the car seat. There's something else. I can look at my child and have the same curiosity. It's not about who got in the garage first. What else is going on? And so we finally got to a place where she was actually asking me, "Why aren't you crying? I'm gonna run away. Why aren't you crying?" And we had a little conversation about that, and I shared, well, one thing right now, I actually had some tears earlier this week, so I don't have a whole lot ready to go for you right now. Sorry, honey. But just being able to share that I know, like, we know we're gonna have a range of emotions here. And for me, I still kind of would prefer to just say, "Stop it. Go do your homework." Like, that would be the easy way out. That would be the shortcut, and that would only, protect my avoidant self. Like, "Ah, we don't have time for this. Go do your homework." That would only protect me in the short run. So, now I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable and, like, taking it slow and letting it play out and like, still just wondering, "What the heck is happening here?" And that gives the space for it to settle down, for her to say, "I'm really nervous about the slumber party." "Ah, okay."
Mm.
And then we're together again, and,
Yeah.
like, in that space of, "I feel really scared, I feel really nervous, I feel all these things." and those feelings are okay. So I wasn't able to just make her happy. And I also didn't like shut her down.
Yeah.
And we can find this space where we're both uncomfortable. And that space of being uncomfortable and confused and uncertain and all the things is still a great space.
Where connection happens.
Yeah.
It's like relationships are deepened in conflict, in struggle, in two people attempting to get their needs met in to the best of their abilities. And when we can remember that, right? And by the way, this is a child, right? Adults struggle with this, right? We've got something going on underneath us and we're lashing out at everyone and, biting our husband's hand when he tries to help and not actually, but
All the
theoretically, um, and it just, I love that share, Alan, because it helps remind us that it's not about the behavior. And if we tamp down the behavior or send the kid to their room or tell them to get over it, we're missing the fertile soil to show them that we're here. We hear them, we see them, we want to know what's underneath that behavior. And that, my friend, changes everything.
Yeah. And I still didn't cry, and she was still kind of, like, waiting for me to cry, and I'm like, you know.
It's funny when I heard her say that, what I got in my gut was, I want to know that you care
Mhm.
that I'm leaving. And I think, again, to this point, like sometimes our highest kind of anchoring as a parent is very intentionally not feeding into those kind of reptilian brain demands so that we can get to the heart of the matter. And man, I could talk to you all day. This is just such juicy stuff. Alan, I can't wait for your next coaching session. You're awesome.
Thanks,
And
Kiva. I'm excited. Yeah.